We were all super bored one night, just hanging out at my friend Jake's house. Halloween was right around the corner, and we wanted to do something spooky. Jake mentioned this old house at the end of our street. Everyone said it was haunted, and it had been empty for years. Nobody ever went near it because it looked creepy and run down. We couldn't resist the idea of exploring it. The more we talked about it, the more we wanted to go. We grabbed some flashlights, put on our jackets, and headed out. The night was chilly, and the moon was shining bright. As we walked, we joked around, pretending to be scared, but inside, I felt a little nervous. When we reached the house, it was even creepier than I imagined. The paint was peeling, and the windows were all cracked. There were weeds growing everywhere, and the porch creaked under our weight. We stood in front for a second, looking at each other, feeling that mix of fear and excitement. Finally, Jake pushed the front door open, and it creaked loudly. The inside was dark and dusty. We shined our flashlights around, and the light danced on the old walls. There were broken chairs and a table with stuff all over it. It looked like it had been abandoned forever. We moved deeper into the house, our footsteps echoing in the silence. As we walked through the living room, I felt a chill run down my spine. I tried to shake it off, telling myself it was just the cold air. We made our way to the stairs, and even though I wanted to stay on the first floor, my friends pushed me to go up. The second floor was even darker. We stepped carefully, trying not to make too much noise. There were old pictures hanging on the walls, but they were so dusty that you couldn't see them clearly. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone standing there. Then we heard it, a loud bang coming from one of the rooms. We all froze, staring at each other with wide eyes. My heart was racing, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. Jake whispered for us to check it out, but I hesitated. I wanted to run away, but I didn't want to look scared in front of my friends. Slowly, we moved toward the door where the noise came from. Jake was in front, and I was right behind him. He opened the door a crack, and we all peered inside. It was just a small, dark room with an old bed in the corner. The curtains were torn, and there was dust everywhere. Just as we were about to step in, we heard another noise. It sounded like something dragging across the floor. That was it for me. I wanted out. I grabbed Jake's arm and pulled him back. We turned to run down the stairs, but as we did, I felt something brush past me, like a cold breeze. I glanced back, and for a split second, I thought I saw a shadow move in the corner of the room. I screamed, and we all bolted out of the house as fast as we could. I could hear my friends yelling behind me, and we didn't stop until we were back outside, panting in the moonlight. We stood there, trying to catch our breath. I felt a rush of adrenaline and fear at the same time. We looked at each other, and I could tell we were all thinking the same thing. What just happened? We were laughing now, but I could still feel that cold breeze on my skin. We decided it was best to leave the house alone. As we walked back home, I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see something following us. I knew I wouldn't forget that night. Every Halloween, when the leaves start to fall and the air turns crisp, I think about that old house and wonder what really happened inside. I guess some places are better left alone. The next time we talked about it, we all agreed that maybe it wasn't such a good idea to go exploring after all. But deep down, I think we all liked the thrill of it, even if it scared us. That's what Halloween is all about, right? It's Halloween, and my friends and I are out in this old cemetery just outside of town. It's pitch black, super foggy, just the kind of night where everything feels creepy. The place is known for some weird stuff happening. People say they've heard whispers or seen shadows move when no one's round. We were daring each other to see who'd stay the longest. Sounds easy, right? So we walked past rows of tombstones, our flashlights barely lighting up the path ahead. It's dead silent, but in a way that feels too quiet, like the whole place is just holding its breath. We're laughing and messing around, trying to scare each other, when we spot this one old grave in the far corner. It's bigger than the others, with vines crawling all over it, and a cracked angel statue leaning forward, almost like it's staring down at us. Then one of my friends dares me to go touch the grave. I laugh it off, trying to act cool, but inside, I'm kind of freaking out. There's this weird pressure in the air around it, like it's somehow colder than anywhere else. I walk up to the grave and touch the cold stone, and just as I do, a wind picks up out of nowhere, rattling the trees. I back up quickly, laughing it off, but that's when I notice it. There's this dark shape in the fog, just standing off to the side, like it's watching us. I figure it's just one of my friends trying to pull a prank, but when I shine my flashlight on it, there's no one there. Just shadows and more fog. I shrug it off, thinking it's nothing, but I can't shake the feeling that something's off. We keep walking, and then we start hearing this whispering. It's soft, like it's coming from all around us, but we can't make out any words. We turn off our flashlights and try to be quiet, listening, but the whispers stop, and everything goes silent again. One of my friends jokes that it's just the wind, but even he sounds a bit freaked out. Then, out of nowhere, one of the tombstones falls over. It's loud, this huge crash that seems to echo, and we all jump. But here's the weird part. It's not an old, crumbling grave. This thing looks solid, like it just got pushed over by someone. We're all staring at each other, frozen, trying to figure out what could have knocked it down. Right then, we all feel it. A cold gust of air blows past us, but it doesn't feel normal. It's like it goes straight through us, sending chills down my spine. And as soon as it passes, we hear it again, the whispering. But this time, it's louder, like it's coming from right behind us. We turn, and there's this dark, shadowy figure, barely visible through the fog, just standing there. It's not moving, but we can feel it watching us, like it's just waiting for us to do something. My friend shines his flashlight on it, but it doesn't go away. Instead, it starts drifting closer, like it's floating, and all of a sudden, we're in full panic mode. Everyone bolts for the exit, running faster than I've ever seen them run. I'm sprinting, heart pounding, when I glance back and see the figure standing right by the angel statue, just watching us leave. Its shape is fuzzy, like it's part of the fog, but I swear I saw eyes, dark and hollow, staring straight at me. We finally make it out of the cemetery, and the second we cross that old rusty gate, the air feels normal again. The fog clears a bit, and everything goes quiet. We're all gasping for breath, looking at each other with wide eyes, too freaked out to say anything. None of us have been back to that cemetery since, and every time I pass it, even during the day, I get this weird feeling, like something's there, waiting, watching. I still hear those whispers sometimes, especially on nights when it's foggy, and I swear, I'll never set foot in that place again. One night, my friends and I were bored and looking for something to do. Since Halloween was coming up, we wanted to find something spooky to get into the spirit of the season. We decided to go to the lake on the edge of town. It's one of those places that people talk about, saying it's haunted. They say if you walk to the end of the dock at night, you might see something scary in the water. No one really knows what it is, but there are lots of stories about it. When we arrived, the moon was covered by dark clouds, and the fog was creeping over the water, making everything look even creepier. The air was chilly, and it felt like Halloween night, perfect for ghost stories. Everything was too quiet. There were no frogs croaking or wind rustling through the trees, just silence. It was like the whole lake was holding its breath, waiting for us. We tried to laugh and joke around, but I could see everyone was a little nervous, glancing around, like we might see something jump out at us. One of my friends dared me to walk to the end of the dock by myself. I didn't want to look scared, So I acted brave and said I would do it. But as soon as I stepped onto the dock, my heart started racing. The wood creaked under my feet, and every step felt louder than the last. I shined my flashlight ahead, but the fog made it hard to see very far. When I finally reached the end of the dock, I stopped and looked out over the water. It was pitch black, and the fog made it look even deeper. I stood there for a moment, trying to act cool, when suddenly I heard a soft splash. I looked down, and the water was rippling, like something was moving below the surface. At first I thought it was just my imagination, but then I saw it. A pale face under the water, looking right up at me. Its eyes were wide open, dark and empty, and its mouth was open too, like it was trying to scream. I felt chills run down my spine. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. I was completely frozen, staring back at that face. Then, out of nowhere, I felt something cold wrap around my ankle. It felt like a hand gripping me tight, and it scared me to death. I tried to pull my leg away, but the grip was too strong. I could feel it pulling me toward the water. My friends were back on the shore, but their voices sounded so far away, like I was underwater. I panicked and kicked as hard as I could. Finally, I broke free and stumbled backward onto the dock. I was gasping for air, and when I looked down, the face was gone. The water was completely still, like nothing had ever happened. I couldn't believe it. I quickly turned and ran back to my friends, who were looking at me with wide eyes. I shook my head and felt shaken, my heart still racing. I kept glancing back at the dock, half expecting to see that face again. We hurried away from the lake, not saying a word. Once we were back in town, I tried to forget about it, but I couldn't shake the image of that face from my mind. Every time I passed the lake, I felt a chill, like something was out there, watching me. I started to feel like I was being followed. The more I thought about it, the creepier it felt. A few nights later, it was Halloween and we were hanging out again, wearing costumes and planning to go trick-or-treating. I mentioned the lake and everyone got quiet. They all knew about the stories, and I could tell they were all thinking the same thing. Nobody wanted to go back, but I was curious. What if I saw that face again? What if I found out what it really was? I ended up suggesting we go back to the lake after trick-or-treating. It was a stupid idea, but I felt brave. My friends didn't want to, but after some convincing, they agreed. We planned to go back later that night after collecting candy. I was nervous, but also excited. I wanted to see if I could find that face again. When the night came, we arrived at the lake just as the sun was setting. The sky turned dark quickly, and the fog rolled in again. It looked just as creepy as before, but I was determined to face it. We walked to the dock, and I felt that same heavy feeling in the air. I was scared, but I wanted to see if I could find that face again. This time, I walked to the end of the dock with my friends right behind me. My heart was pounding, but I kept telling myself to be brave. When I got to the end, I looked down at the water. It was still, but I felt like something was lurking beneath the surface. I waited, holding my breath, hoping I wouldn't see anything. Then I heard it again, a soft splash, just like before. I looked down, and for a moment, nothing happened. But then, slowly, a figure started to rise from the water. I felt my heart drop. It was the same pale face, with those dark eyes staring right at me. I felt that icy grip on my ankle again, and this time, I didn't wait. I turned and ran, my friends right behind me. We all sprinted back to shore, not stopping until we were safe on the grass. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears. We didn't look back as we hurried, away from the lake, knowing that whatever was in that water was not something we wanted to mess with again. Now, I can't pass by that lake without feeling scared. I still think about that face under the water, and I wonder if it's still waiting for someone to come close enough to see it again. Every Halloween, when the fog rolls in and the air gets chilly, I remember that night and feel a chill run down my spine.